Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and oh my word, everyone, I mean, talk about a day to remember. Scott Frost has been fired from Nebraska, and today we are talking about the 10 most likely replacements for Scott Frost as Nebraska's next head coach. Obviously a monumental day in Nebraska's history, coming off of a monumental loss to Georgia Southern, which we will be talking about in this next video coming out tomorrow. But today we got to talk about the news that's upfront and personal right now in Nebraska football, and there's going to be a lot to go through. Caleb, how you doing?
Man, Josh, I'm feeling weird. Yeah. I mean, we saw it coming, I guess. It just feels weird, though, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's nice for the program to move forward, and definitely the Scott Frost tenure has ended. It feels like, you know, again, we're starting over. We're doing this process again. It feels like we're kind of, you know, stuck on the wheel. And again, everybody wanted Scott Frost to succeed.
Hopefully one of these guys is the guy that'll bring 100%. Us and take us to the next level, I think. And that's the hope for today. I mean, again, the goal is to find the guys who are most likely to be Nebraska's head coach. It's kind of more of a predictions video than it is like our own opinions inherently. So that's kind of our hope, at least. But up front, like you're kind of mentioning with the hope of the future for Nebraska football, is in Trev Alberts' announcement press conference. He went through a handful of things he's looking for. And obviously, it's important to know Trev Alberts is the athletic director. He will be the one conducting the search. He said it's going to be a national search, even while Mickey Joseph, as announced as the interim head coach, will be leading this team throughout the next 9 games with an opportunity to potentially win himself the coaching job if he succeeds over the next 9 games. We'll be talking about him in this video, of course. What are some of the things that you felt like Trev mentioned that are important to know heading into the coaching search?
Yeah, so there's a big list of priorities that Trev wanted in a head coach. He wants a person of character, a culture builder, effective managers of people, a grinder, not a lot of hobbies.
Yeah,
that was just kind of a funny one.
He needs to know. It's like it's all they know is football. I'm like, all right,
it's football and nothing else.
Yeah.
Identify and relate to modern student athletes. And NIL, obviously it's changed the landscape in football just even this season. Authentic leadership are someone that a player is willing to follow. People who hate to lose more than they enjoy winning.
Interesting.
A servant leadership mentality, who's here to serve young people, to put that hard work first, sees a bigger picture than themselves. Someone who is able to motivate players and pull their best performance out of them. You know, all good things. And, you know, I'd say that's what a lot of places want, but it's just good to hear him say it too.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely emphasized like those types of character things. And like that's step one of the coaches he's looking for. And so it does, you know, immediately bring into question some of the coaches that are already kind of floating in the ether for Nebraska's options. So we kind of wanted to go through and provide some of the things we think are going to be Trev's parameters for the next head coach for Nebraska, or some of the things that at least feel the most likely. Off the rip, it seems pretty likely that he's going to try to avoid the scandals. He's going to try to avoid the sketchy history of some of these coaches. I mean, it at least lowers Urban Meyer's odds significantly, I think, with how much he emphasized this stuff. Like, he's not going to be the first person that Trev Alberts is reaching out to, which even after the reports that Urban was supposedly interested in the Nebraska job, if it were to open just a few weeks ago, and it makes me feel like Hugh Freeze seems less and less likely too. I think age is also a fairly important one when Alberts is talking about like identifying and relating to young modern student athletes, and with the pressures and things they have to deal with now with NIL and understanding that perspective. It just seems less and less likely to me that we're going to hire an older coach. Like, I would say for sure above 60 seems extremely unlikely. And I would probably say above 55 seems unlikely. Like, that could potentially eliminate guys like Lance Leopold or Gus Malzone or guys like that.
Yeah, it just really depends on how much Trev Alberts leans into like some of the winning. Obviously, there's not that many coaches that have won national championships. And some of those guys are older on the list to see like those reaches where I could see it being over 55.
Because I know some people have said like, you know, Bob Stoops maybe, or like in the long term, or Ed Ogeron, who are both in their 60s as well. Like, to me, those just seem incredibly unlikely based off of what we're aiming for with that type of statement.
It's not really reactionary. I think it's just something that we've kind of learned is we need some Power 5 experience. Yeah, someone who's just been there before in these big moments. We play big games all the time. You are against very experienced coaches. You're not playing against guys who are figuring out themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, even with Frost, we saw like him talk about coming into the program that we're going to change the Big Ten, and then the Big Ten's going to have to mold to us. And then over time, he's like, we need to learn how to play in the Big Ten. And like his literal statements himself changed over time, because he realized it's just a different experience playing in the Big Ten. But I wouldn't say it's like necessary, but definitely highly preferred if possible. Dude, I mean, one aspect of this now with the transfer portal is that if you hire a current head coach, you're going to get some of those players coming along with them. And we know that like when Frost, after the season, more than likely, we're going to have a handful of guys transferring out. And we already saw that even last year with just from positional coaches. So like inherently bringing in a head coach like that, it's probably important to bring them from a talented team, and you might find some of those players coming to Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's just a great example.
Oh, USC.
Yeah, to USC. I mean, USC
gosh.
just got a ton of Oklahoma's talent. Caleb Williams being, the biggest one of that. So, yeah, that's just a huge bonus of getting coaches now. Like you said, yeah, if you get a head coach from another good school, boom, a couple of those guys, just an instant boost, instant impact, and yeah, that definitely helps winning and build culture, no doubt.
Yeah. I think the last kind of few things here is pretty straightforward, but it's like, I do think that there's a world where Trev Alberts could have a potential bias for a defensive leaning head coach. Like this isn't one of the guaranteed ones. We're more in like the potential options here. But coming off of a Georgia Southern loss where we gave up over 600 yards to Georgia Southern, the defense looks terrible right now. Okay, so with that said, I think those are kind of the parameters we're looking for here. So let's just kick off with some of the honorable mentions that we've seen thrown around a lot, but might just not fully hit those criteria we're looking for. And I think the first one off the rip there, probably Mark Stoops, which has been mentioned a lot, Kentucky's head coach. He did just sign a massive extension with Kentucky, which is also one factor. But otherwise than that, it's that he's had stretches or years of success at Kentucky, but we haven't seen it anywhere else. And it's basically only been at Kentucky. And at least inherently, I think those are the red flags. In that case, he's on the older side of the spectrum. Inherently, it's like he just doesn't have a lot of outside evidence of Kentucky that makes you that confident.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 2 10-win seasons there. He's also followed that up with some 5-win seasons. Stoops are also from that kind of Bo Pelini coaching tree line too. Obviously solid coach, but is that what it's going to get us to where we want to be and competing for the Big Ten?
Yeah, he's had 4 losing seasons out of it in 9 so far. So it's like how excited does that make you? And like last year, his best player was literally our player.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, man. It doesn't get me that excited. And I don't think that's one that Trev Alberts will pull the trigger on.
Next is probably Eric Bieniemy. We mentioned him before.
Yep.
I just don't think it's likely he switches from the NFL. Obviously, he is interesting. Played for Colorado. Was the offensive coordinator. He was offered Colorado's head coaching job in 2020, but he declined. It just seems like he wants to stick in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's the other names just to consider that would just barely miss our list here is Jeff Grimes from Baylor, Todd Monken from Georgia, Tommy Rees from Notre Dame, and as a fun one, I wanted to say Brian Flores because I'm a sucker for some Brian Flores. But all right, let's get into our top 10 here, and we're going from quote unquote least likely to most likely at the top. So let's start here at number 10 with Urban Meyer. And again, like we mentioned, we have him way farther down the list than I would say most people, solely because I just don't think Trev Alberts can get over some of the character concerns. He was fired 13 games into his first season at Jacksonville. But basically, I think his reputation is pretty tarnished at this point across the country. And I'm not even convinced that if he joined a big program again, that he'd have immediate success like he did at Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State's Ohio State. It's just a different ball game right now, especially coming off of a tarnished reputation. But at the same time, we know he's a dang good coach in the right situations. And I think there's a world where we could be tempted by it, and that's why it's on the list.
Yeah, I agree. It's just some of the poor decision making at Jacksonville, obviously on and off the field too. It's not just the off the field issues were not the only issues for Urban Meyer. He was not good on the field tactically, not starting the right guys. The draft picks were weird. It just all around did not look like he knew what he was doing. And it just really, brought down Urban Meyer's shine.
Yeah,
for sure. Number 9 on our list, we have Matt Rule. He's 47. He coached at Temple between 2013 and 2016, 2-10, 6-6, 10-4, then 11-3. took Baylor from 11-1 after that scandal, and then 2018 7-6, and then to 11-3. He went to the Panthers here for these last 2 seasons. I'm definitely interested to see what he can do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like his resume at Baylor, I mean, the immediate turnaround to having that successful season is what got him the job in the NFL. And assuming that things go poorly for him this season, which seems likely for Panthers, then
after week 1.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, then it seems like there's a pretty good chance he gets fired, if not midseason, by the end of the year, which could potentially line up with our head coaching search. But again, there's still a lot of timing issues here where like we might want to hire before he's fired if he makes it through the whole season and these types of things. So that's why he's definitely lower on our list than some other ones as well. But he could potentially fit the culture and would make sense overall. But he doesn't have that Big Ten experience, which I think is probably one of the bigger red flags for his resume.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Number 8 on our list, we have Josh Gathis, Miami's offensive coordinator right now. And he has he's young. He's 38 years old. And he has a lot of different fun places where he's been. Hasn't been a head coach, but he was Penn State's passing game and offensive recruiting coordinator and a wide receiver coach from 2014 to 2017. He was Alabama's co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach in 2018. And then the Michigan offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach for a couple years there. And then now has been Miami's offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach. And that's just a good list. He has Big Ten experience. He had Alabama, so he's worked under Nick Saban, and that's
always love to
usually
see that.
Worked out. It's worked out with most of those coaches recently.
Yeah.
And so he's got kind of both of those experience. He hasn't been a head coach yet, which is kind of brings us lower on the list.
The powerhouse resume with Penn State, Bama, Michigan, and Miami. And so he's next up for someone as their head coach, and it's very possible it's Nebraska.
Yeah, I agree. Next, number 7 on our list, we have Luke Fickell for most likely. Again, we'd love to have Luke Fickell, but this is, again, it's ranked on who's most likely to be here, not who we want most. Again, he's 49 years old, Cincinnati, Ohio native through and through, has been with Ohio State for a long time, tons of the coaching experience, obviously first at-large team to make the college football playoff. That is no small feat. Tons of great NFL talent in those years there as Cincinnati's head coach. He's shown that he can take guys, develop guys, put them in the NFL, and just been a solid coach here for a long time.
The problem here is that he reportedly turned down MSU and supposedly Notre Dame for their head coaching jobs. So the odds would be is that he is very content staying at Cincinnati. And the reports have been is that in the long term, he wants to be Ohio State's head coach. I mean, he was on Ohio State's staff forever and ever as a co-defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, interim head coach, and all those things before going to Cincinnati. And so, long story short, I don't know how likely it is, but obviously it's the dream hire for most teams in the country right now. And we're going to give him a ring. So the question is he interested, and how much can we pay him? So
personally, I say what a difference a year makes. Obviously, last year they were on a high. Ritter. And again, the college football playoff, but that doesn't happen every year with a team like Cincinnati. What if they only win, 9-10 games, obviously be competitive in the AAC? I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but, if he wins 7 or 8, I think at that point, then maybe there's that's where you can maybe see it happening.
Maybe even then we wouldn't be as interested.
Fair.
I think it'd be a great spot. Nebraska's just a great place. You're just come win a few natties with us and then go to Ohio State,
Yeah. So up at number 6 here is Matt Entz from North Dakota State, 49 years old. And, this is a riskier hire in a sense because he doesn't have that Power 5 coaching experience, which is why he's, outside the top 5 odds wise. The fit makes sense. A Midwestern coach like this moving to Nebraska, logically is there. And then you move up and you obviously dominated back in 2019 with Trey Lance and company just tearing up college football and looking good again this year. I'm just wondering whether or not we would actually reach out to him or, be excited about reaching out to him without having that Power 5 experience.
I totally would understand if that's the way that Trev Alberts went. But yeah, I do think he is interesting. He shows that he could recruit in the Midwest.
Yeah, I mean, he's from Iowa. He went to, I think, Wayne State and coached there for a while. And
still has some Nebraska connection.
He's Midwestern through and through. But he's only in his 4th year as a head coach, and that's only at North Dakota State. So it would be the definition of a risky hire, but one that has high upside.
Yeah, and you know what? He's shown that he can do it by winning some FCS national championships. So he's shown that he could keep a program going, which is definitely awesome. Number 5, we have none other than our interim head coach now, Mickey Joseph. He has 9 games, and we're obviously very excited that he was on the coaching staff. Again, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson looked very awesome today.
Oh, my word.
2 of his products.
I mean, like you said, the question is, how many games does Mickey Joseph have to win to keep his job? Is it 6 games? Does Nebraska have to be 6-6 by the end of the year? Do they have to be 7-5 by the end of the year? It's probably one of those 2 numbers. 8-4 would be pretty insane. If he did that, I mean, you give him the job. So I think it's probably 6-6 and 7-5 become interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to give him more time. Obviously, just recently, Dabo Sweeney comes to mind, wide receivers coach. Obviously, at Clemson, made the interim head coach, does really well. That would obviously be the dream case scenario for all Nebraska fans if that were to be the case. And I'm glad we could give him as much of a chance as possible with this 9 games to see what he can do. And hopefully, he can show he can prove something. If nothing else, maybe he could be promoted to offensive coordinator next year or something like that too. So we're excited about Mickey Joseph.
I think he's pretty dang likely. This top 5 is fairly likely, like any of these guys here. So at number 4 then is Bill O'Brien. Obviously currently Bama's offensive coordinator. He still has somewhat of probably a little stained reputation coming off of the disaster of the final ending to his Texan head coaching career. But he, from a coaching perspective, he had that team ready to win games. They were in the playoffs. The Texans were in the playoffs. And I mean, they even had the Chiefs on the ropes. They had plenty of wins under his tenure, and they looked good. And obviously, he has the head coaching experience at Penn State from 2012 to 2013, and then the history with the Patriots in the NFL as well. He's 52 years old, so he's kind of right in that range, which I think could make sense. He's not as glamorous of a hire as maybe some would want it to be, and he doesn't have the personality of someone where you're like, wow, so excited for Bill O'Brien. But he does have the resume of someone who knows football, and I think it's a pretty safe hire all the way around if we can make it happen.
Again, the Penn State turnaround, that was a really tough time to be at Penn State. And he did really well. So he's a solid hire. And like you said, maybe it's not flashy, but he would win us games, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. So here at number 3 then is a really interesting hire who's gotten probably more and more hyped as time has passed. And that's Jim Leonhard, Wisconsin's defensive coordinator. He's 39 years old. And obviously a history kind of Wisconsin through and through. He's been great. And overall, a really, really interesting one. What do you think, Gil?
Yeah, like you said, he's younger, 39. He played linebacker at Wisconsin when he drafted 2005.
I mean, he played for a long time. He played in the NFL from 2005 to 2014. And so he had a long career there.
Yeah, 9 years in the NFL, was a DB coach at Wisconsin in 2016, and then has been the D coordinator for the last 4 years, and obviously been really solid, had some great defenses there. And look at the prospects that Wisconsin has pumped out under him at linebacker recently.
Yeah.
That would really help Nebraska. We've seen that we have done nothing but struggle defensively, and especially our linebacking core just have not been able to really get it right since Bo Pelini, since Levante David, since 2012. So it's been about a decade of not great linebacker play. He doesn't have that Power 5 head coaching experience, but he does have the defensive experience and the Big Ten experience. So I think that kind of evens out. It's really hard to check all of these boxes. I think that's why it's
pretty likely is that, he checks all of those boxes. He's young and seems like a guy that Trev Alberts could resonate with and would potentially make sense. And he's a guy who, if you offer the job, would almost surely take it, considering it's a huge upgrade in his career at a young age.
Yeah, I'd say anybody who went undrafted in the NFL and then played for 9 years would be a definition of a grinder. So I could definitely see that.
Unless you're Will Compton, then it's just pure talent. So at number
he's going for year 10, baby.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's going for year 10.
So at number 2 is a really interesting coach here, and that's Dave Aranda from Baylor, 45 years old. Obviously, been around the block. I mean, currently Baylor's head coach since 2020, and in the 2 seasons, in the first season went 2-7 in the COVID year in 2020. Then in 2021, immediately 12-2, 7-2 in the Big 12, won the conference, won the Sugar Bowl versus Ole Miss. Team came out ready to play. And before that, he had experience at LSU as an assistant head coach, D coordinator, and linebackers coach, 2013 to 2015, Wisconsin's D coordinator and inside linebackers coach. and then 2012 Utah State's defensive coordinator. Got the Big Ten coaching experience. He has the Power 5 head coaching experience. He's in his 40s. He's had a team take him to the Sugar Bowl 12-2. He checks almost all the boxes, and there seems to be a lot of positive news around him right now. He seems pretty likely.
Yeah, it could definitely happen. It would take a good chunk of change, I believe, to get him to Nebraska. He's reportedly getting paid around like $6 million
and
right now.
And just signed an extension.
That would definitely be an issue.
I mean, in the press conference, Trev Albert said, we're willing to pay market price, and money's not going to be the issue. And right now, top 15 contracts in college football are around that $7.5, $8 million range to be right around that top 15. And so that's probably what you'd be looking for our head coach if it's going to be a big name. So, that could be a $1 to $1.5, $2 million raise for Aranda. That could be enough to get him to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely difficult when you think you've already built something pretty good there at Baylor, but I do think it's a possibility. Obviously, the Big 12 shakeup, it's a big factor.
It's an issue.
And I think that stability or the lack of stability therein, we're a draw in that scenario. The Big Ten, unless they know something we don't with them, maybe going to the SEC or something. Yeah. Unless that's the case, I think that it'd be very nice to be in one of these top situations where you're on a safe boat that's smoothly sailing.
Yes, exactly. So I like the odds for Dave Aranda for sure. So at number 1 is a similar boat here with the Power 2 issue and a team that could find a coach who could find his way to the Big Ten. That's Matt Campbell, Iowa State's head coach, 42 years old, and probably the odds-on favorite for Nebraska's head coach at the moment. Like if you're a betting man, it feels pretty smart to put your money on Matt Campbell. He's roughly making around $4 million right now. So the money, it seems like a place where you could convince him to come. Obviously, coming off of a triumphant win versus the Hawkeyes, something every Nebraska fan wants to see. He has the resume to back it up too with the success at Iowa State and a lot of winning seasons at a program that traditionally did not have one.
Yeah, exactly. He's beat the likes of, Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, he has the best record of anybody else in that time in the Big 12 against Oklahoma, 2-4.
Yeah. I mean, obviously before he got to Iowa State, he was at Toledo as their head coach and previously even at Bowling Green, talent's up. And once he joined Iowa State, I mean, before he got to Iowa State, they had only had, I think it was like 3 winning seasons in like 14 years. And then he got there, and then year 1 was a 3-9. Again, year 1's usually the year you can give coaches a little bit of a bye. Then after that, 8-5, 7-6, 9-3 with a win in the Fiesta Bowl, winning the Big 12, and then 7-6 last year. And then starting off now 2-0 though, with a win against Iowa, which was the only team that he hadn't really beat yet because previously he had beat everybody else. He has the Midwestern coaching experience and the Power 5 coaching experience, which is, the Midwestern coaching experience is an X factor that no other coach can really bring to the table. That, he's taken a program like Iowa State. They're suffering some of the location problems that Nebraska has to fight. And
even worse.
But Iowa State's even worse. He's shown that he can create that culture and create a winning culture at a program that inherently didn't have one beforehand when he got there. I think he fits almost every single box outside of Big Ten coaching experience. But I think that's something that Nebraska would be very willing to take on.
Yeah, I think any of these top 5 guys, I would definitely be very interested in for Nebraska to have as a head coach. Barring, we'll see what happens with Mickey Joseph. Obviously, if it goes well, then he'd be exciting in that top 5 for sure.
For sure.
Trev Alberts has a lot to mull over. We love to hear what you guys think. Who do you guys think will be the next head coach? Is there anybody else that we missed on this list who a glaring miss? Or, somebody that you're really excited about? Tell us your thoughts about Scott Frost, this crazy week for Nebraska football. What an insane weekend it has been for us. A historic loss. First time firing a head coach like midseason in recent history. It's been a wild one, guys. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Yes. And always like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. Make sure you also follow us on Twitter as well. And I'm Caleb.
Oh.
That's Josh.
Oh.
This has been Backseat Sports. And we'll see you next video.
Yes, sir. Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.